Welcome.
Oh, okay.
Welcome to our webinar, our free Trust Matters webinar for July. We will make the recording and the presentation and some additional resources available to you after the webinar is complete. Just a few pieces of housekeeping before we get into this. We plan this to be about 30 minutes of presentation with about 15 minutes of Q&A. With this small group, feel free to just raise your hand or jump in if you have questions or comments. If you'd rather hold them until later, you can just put them in the chat at any time. Again, keep your camera on if you want to, but don't feel any pressure to do that. And then throughout, we're going to be using some of the features. Today, we're primarily going to use polling and the chat. Most important is to have fun, because trust is such a critical piece of all of our relationships in every situation we're in, that if we get too stressed out about it, ironically, it makes it harder to build trust. So let's just be open and free and easy and enjoy the conversation. In case you aren't overly familiar with Trusted Advisor Associates, we've been doing this for going on 25 years now. Ever since Charlie Green, who founded the Trusted Advisor Associates Consulting Group, wrote the book, co-authored the book, The Trusted Advisor. Charlie went on to refocus his efforts specifically in the areas of selling when he published Trust-Based Selling. And then we have a third book in our series, the Trusted Advisor Field Book, which is kind of a greatest hits compilation, pulling from those other two books in a very practical manner. I'm not trying to get you to buy the books. I just bring this up as a kind of an awareness that this is how we approach trust. It's founded in the models and concepts that can be found in these three books. We kind of covered this a little bit, so I don't think we need to do this now, but it sounds like what you're most curious about is really focusing on, and I'll just encapsulate it. If you want to clarify in the chat, please do bring up that chat and clarify. What I heard is that you're interested both in how do we set ourselves up for success in a new job, whether that's impending in some cases, or maybe down the road I'll be thinking about it. But there's also an element of, as a leader, how can I help make new hires more comfortable and be able to be more successful? And so I'll get into that a little bit, but this one is really focused on a new employee's perspective. So hiring a new person is an investment, right, for any company. And I've went through and I pulled out some stats. Typically, it takes on average 5 to 6 weeks for an employer to hire a new employee. Now, the cost of hiring is a little bit more of a controversial subject. When I did some research, SHRM, the Society for Human Resources Management, identifies hard costs of hiring a new employee at just shy of $5,000. And hard costs include those things like posting the reports, paying for the talent acquisition, HR, any kind of people who are involved in that process, all of the onboarding, kind of the things that you can actually put in a column. Much bigger of an impact is what they call the soft costs of hiring a new employee. And this has been estimated at 2 to 3 times that employee's salary. And this is everything from the managers and managers having to be involved in the hiring process, from identifying the role, writing up the job descriptions, doing the interviews, discussing with each other who they want to hire, and then of course the additional time with onboarding, in addition to formal onboarding activities. So when we look at it from a corporate perspective, it makes sense to get it right, and then to go the further step of helping employees acclimate and be successful quickly. But as we talked about earlier, it's not just the impact to the companies that's important. So I'm curious, and I am going to go ahead and put this poll up. How long did it take you to get your last job? Yeah, so somewhere between 2 and 6 months, right? And that's pretty significant, or that's pretty consistent with what we hear. I can tell you the last time I got a new job, actually, I can't even really, I don't really have an analogy to that, just because of the way my career has happened. I think the last time I was really looking for a new job, it was probably right around 4 or 5 months. Right. So it's not only an investment for employers, it's also a major investment for job seekers. And hopefully, Jennifer, this puts you a little bit at ease here.
I think I knew it was pretty average, but like
Yeah.
I said, even the 6 months wouldn't have been outrageous. Um, but
But
it,
it feels
it's just
like you had
it's
the rug pulled out from under you during that.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, and yeah, it was a
Yeah.
very unique circumstance. I've never quite, I don't think I've ever heard of anyone going through something quite like this.
Well, it had to be really hard, especially coming over the holidays and the first quarter of the year.
Yeah,
The
it
timing
was
is miserable too.
yeah. Oh, in on both, really both of them were, I
Yes,
mean, April wasn't too bad until you got to July, but that July 4th week, oh my God,
must have been awful.
I mean, I had already interviewed for the job I eventually got the offer for, but like everything, like I thought I was being ghosted, honestly, like
Yeah,
the whole world shut down.
yeah, yeah. That's it's interesting because the reason I hesitated when I was talking about the last time I got a new job, the last time I got a job through kind of a traditional job search, was literally I flew into the country after being on holiday and said to myself as I was flying back, okay, I, I'm going to buckle down and I am going to get my next job. And that was on September 10th of 2001. And
Ah,
then I woke up the next morning and it was like,
yeah, maybe not.
not starting my job search today for certain.
No, no,
So, an
no.
interesting thing about this, if you look at the BLS statistics, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, um, we are just now back to about the average time it takes to get a job as we were before the pandemic, right? The statistics have been absolutely crazy. So it's been 5 years to get back to where we were in 2019. Um, to your point, what job seekers are reporting, and this comes from an organization called Flex Jobs, on average, they're putting in 10 to 20 applications just to get a single interview. And not to be overly scary, but it takes 10 to 15 interviews to get one job offer.
Well, now I
So
feel really good. My statistics were
you
better than
should,
that. So thank you.
yeah, getting a job is a full-time job,
Yeah.
right? And so once you get that job, what's next? And I say, look at the first month as a real opportunity, right? An opportunity for absorption. And think about this from, to your point, Blake, from the hiring organization's perspective, as well as from the new employee's perspective. That first month is an opportunity to learn about the organization, to learn about the new person and the new people that you're meeting on both sides, to absorb as much as we can about the new role and the new company. It's also an opportunity for evaluation. Right? And again, this goes both ways. We often think about the fact that we are being evaluated as a new employee. That's pretty obvious, right? And pretty sensible. It's also an opportunity for us to evaluate the fit with the organization. Is it really the best fit for us? Because let's face it, I can speak from my own experience. I have been in roles where it looked like a dream job on paper, sailed through the interviews, really, really excited about it, and then pretty quickly within hitting the ground, realized that I had not made the right choice. Right. And again, that goes both ways. The other opportunity we have in that first month is for expectations, both to manage our own expectations of what we're expecting out of the job, but also for us to set our own expectations with our new employer. Right? And that, I think all of these need to work together. As we absorb and observe the culture, we can start to set our own expectations, really thinking about the long term. It's easy to start a new job with this idea that, yep, I will do anything they throw at me because I'm so eager to have them want me there. And yet we have to keep that long-term perspective, because that level of commitment, that level of engagement may not be sustainable over the long term. So setting expectations is critical in the beginning. And then the final thing I'll say is this: it's about branding. This is our opportunity to really control. I hesitate because I hate that word, but to really influence, I'll say it that way, influence how others perceive us. Right? One of the most exciting things about a new job is that it is a new start. And so we can let go of all of those things that we carry with us from our past experiences. Take advantage of that fresh start. Now, when you think about all of this, this should not be a new model to you. I want to kind of couch this in terms of the trust equation. And the trust equation is simply a model that helps us understand how trust works. So the trust equation says that our trustworthiness is a function of our credibility, what we say and how we say it, plus our reliability, how our actions compare to the commitments that we make, plus this thing that we call intimacy, which is a sense of connectedness, or how we create a sense of security for other people. All three of those things build trust. And then there's self-orientation in the denominator, which means that our trustworthiness is a function of all three of the trust building aspects in the numerator, divided by or drawn down on by our level of self-orientation. Right? And self-orientation is about our focus. Are we focused on ourselves, or are we focused on something other than ourselves? And it includes both intention. Am I looking just to get what I want? But it also includes attention. Am I really focused on what's happening versus kind of caught up in whatever's inside my head? And I'm placing some special emphasis on self-orientation, because self-orientation is not always conscious. And I think that most of the mistakes that we see in starting a new role are related to our own self-orientation. It's our own concerns, fears, and focus that drive us to take behavior or make behaviors that at least impede and may in fact degrade the trust that we build. So I'm curious to hear from you all. Have you ever made a big mistake as a new hire? And you can put this in the chat if you want to, or you can come off. I'll share with you one of the biggest mistakes that I ever made as a new hire. It was during my internship. I was interning for a large consulting firm in between my first and second years of business school. I was really excited about the job. And I was placed on a team. We were working for an organization where we were doing a major organizational restructuring. And the team lead, who was a principal at the time, so 2 to 3 levels above me, and obviously much more experienced than I was. This was my first time ever as a consultant. He was laying out to the small team, there were about 8 of us, he was laying out the approach that he wanted to take. And he said, okay, we're going to have this sub team here, and they're going to start here, and they're going to do the following things. And then we're going to have the other sub team kind of work on from the other end. And you're going to do the following things. And the 2 teams would meet in the middle. And I thought, aha, now I'm an MBA student. I'm pretty smart, right? And I really want this guy to know that I can bring value very early to the job. So I raised my hand and I said, I'm not sure that's going to work. I feel like if the teams do that, there's a big chance that we're going to miss each other in the middle. And he kind of looked at me and he said, okay. And he went on. And I'm like, oh, wow, I must not have explained myself very clearly. I really think this is a big deal. So I raised my hand again and I'm like, no, I really, really don't think this is going to work. I think that you've got some real problems with this. And he looked at me, he said, it's going to work. I know what I'm doing. Now, me really interested in being valuable right out of the gate, I do it a third time. But wait, because clearly, if I just articulate what I'm thinking, he will see how smart I am, right? And he'll know that what I'm saying is a better approach. I said, but wait, we like really, I've got some. And he stopped me mid-sentence and looked at me. He said, if you interrupt me one more time, I will fire you today. And I kind of stepped back. And I immediately, obviously, knew that I had done something wrong. It took me a very long time to figure out what I actually did wrong. And what I actually did wrong was my self-orientation. I was so focused on myself, proving how smart I was, that I completely lost sight of my role, of his experience, of the likelihood that I actually knew what the heck I was talking about, given that I had zero experience in this, right? So that's an example of a huge mistake that I made as a new employee. Hi, Daniel. Did I see Daniel come in? Hi, Daniel. Welcome. We have a small group here, so feel free to come on camera if you'd like to.
Okay, I'm not in a good position to be on camera, but I'll listen in. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Noel.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm late.
I need to reach out to you. Daniel, where are you located?
In Zambia.
In Zambia. I'm going to be in Kenya
Yes,
and Tanzania.
Lusaka.
Yeah, next month.
Ah, I see.
I need to figure out who to contact while I'll be in Nairobi. And I want to see if I can find some time to meet you all, like meet some people in person. So sorry, total aside, Daniel's an ongoing client. Okay, back to this. So what are the 5 most common mistakes new hires make? Number 1 is being tied to your past. And being tied to your past is 2 things. 1, it can be allowing your past negative experiences to unfairly influence behavior in your new job. Right? Say you had a really difficult manager in the past who always put you down when you made recommendations or never listened to your recommendations, thinking that means that your recommendations don't have any value, and adjusting your behavior based on that past experience versus starting with a clean slate. The other end of that spectrum of being tied to our past is the tendency that we have to want to demonstrate our credibility, right? We want to show people that we're smart or show that we have experience. And so we end up talking too much about how we did things before. Well, at my old company, we did it this way. Well, at my old company, we did it that way. It's kind of like being on a date with somebody, maybe a first date, and talking about how you behaved with your last partner, right? It's just a little bit insulting. And even though it comes from, this is the trick with self-orientation, even though it comes from a good intention of wanting to provide value and demonstrate that you have the experience, it isn't always received that way. So the number 1 mistake new hires make is staying too tied to their past. The second one, and this is kind of really obvious in the example I just shared from my own history, trying to prove that we're smart, right? Again, this is all about focusing on the credibility and the trust equation. And it's obvious why we do this. We get hired for our credibility and reliability, right? We get hired because we can do something. We have a subject matter expertise. We have a track record of having done this kind of work, or we demonstrate some kind of potential for being able to do that work. And so we naturally allow ourselves to believe that what they value in us is our ability to do that work, which makes sense if all they're looking at is resumes. But we're not working with robots, and we're not just doing things on paper. We're actually working with people. And so if all we focus on is showing that we're smart, we leave ourselves a gaping hole in showing that we're human and in really connecting with people. So again, there are kind of two sides of the coin of trying to prove that we're smart. One is we can come across as arrogant, a bit of a know-it-all, right? We're always jumping in, always trying to have the right answer. The other side of that coin is that we ignore the connecting piece, that intimacy that allows us to really build relationships in a new role. The third mistake that people make is keeping to themselves, right? And this, again, it often starts from self-orientation, some kind of insecurity, or, maybe I'm not comfortable. I'm afraid of being rejected. I don't, I think, oh, well, everybody's already established in their little groups. I feel like every time we start a new job or start with a new team, we automatically regress to being in like junior high, right? Or high school. And it's like we're dealing with cliques, and are they going to like me? Are they going to accept me? And those are very real emotions to have, as long as we don't allow those emotions to completely overwhelm us. So if you're starting a new job, rather than sitting back and waiting for somebody to take pity on the new kid, right, with my big air quotes, rather than waiting for somebody to reach out, be the one that does the reaching out. Right? Don't isolate yourself because you're new to the organization. The fourth mistake, failing to communicate effectively. And that can be, it's a huge gamut. It's everything from not being clear about what you need to be successful, to using language that's tied up in your old role, or not taking the time to learn the acronyms and the language of the new job, or even just because of concerns, not speaking up when something isn't clear. And so if we don't communicate with our new employer, then they have no way to help us when we need help. The fifth mistake is not taking initiative. And taking initiative is not to be confused with trying to do everything myself, right? Trying to do everything myself is kind of a level 2 or number 2 mistake about trying to prove that I'm smart. Not taking initiative is just waiting and doing only what things are given to us. So speak up, ask your manager, what else can I do? Are there things that I can get involved with that will help me meet more people? Are there opportunities that I can take to sit in on meetings so that I can more quickly understand, right? Be responsible for your own absorption, expectation setting, branding. Be willing to put yourself out there. So I know this is what you're really here for, and this is the 7 trust building ways to avoid all of these mistakes. I'm going to do a quick time check. We're okay on time. Before we move on to that, let me page up. What questions or thoughts do you have about these mistakes that new hires make? I've been rambling a bit.
So I guess from the other side, with Blake and trying to figure out how to help onboard people. I mean, clearly, right, making sure you introduce people around, and that's the one that I can really think of where there's a real opposite. Like the thing you can do for a new hire is make sure they meet people, and try and invite them to meetings. And I've definitely seen that some employers are more dedicated to those kinds of practices than others.
Yeah, I'd agree.
They confuse onboarding with orientation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's the administrative side, but then there's also the other side of things, right? And I think all companies should try and give their best effort, or a buddy or someone to around their age group, or what have you, to try and, introduce them to the teams and the business, and, everything inside and outside of work, right? Just to get to know somebody a little bit better. Yeah, no, I'm thinking about all these little items, and how do you set someone up for success is really the question, right?
And I guess
Very much.
another thought that comes to mind is, yes, we all know the new hire that says, well, the way we did it in my last company. But on the other hand, sometimes you do get to a point where you're not even a new hire necessarily anymore, and you are involved in a team that's trying to problem solve, or process develop. And I'm wondering, is it what I sometimes do by the time you get to that point is, it's like, well, some of the ways that I've seen this done, right? So you're not citing the last company you were at, or, but just like,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering if that really is less obnoxious. It feels less obnoxious, and it's in a different context rather than being a new hire, but any insight on that?
Yeah. I mean, what does your gut tell you, Jennifer?
Like I said, and this is going to be weird, but I feel like when it's some of the way, you're not advocating that things must be the way they've been in my past, but just you're looking for ways to do this. These are some of the ones I've seen, which I think is different.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, the difference that I hear, and again, I'm going to draw it into self-orientation here. There's a difference between calling on your experience and sharing your experience as a way to bring ideas forward.
mm-hmm.
That's credibility, right? Because you're sharing things that you have seen work
Right.
in different circumstances. Different from being tied to a way of doing things because it's what's comfortable for you.
Okay.
Right. And that's high self-orientation. That is, I'm tied to my own way of doing it. I'm not open to considering other ways to do it. Right. It's my idea, therefore it must be right.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that?
Yeah, it does. Perfect.
Yeah. And in fact, that's a great way to address something like this. If you feel like if you feel yourself kind of getting that urge to, oh God, I got to show them that I'm worth the investment they made to hire me, right? It's a great opportunity to just stop and think about your own self-orientation and say, okay, how do I couch this in a way that is them oriented versus me oriented? All right. So that's kind of one of the hints. The 7 trust building ways to avoid making these first, like, new hire mistakes. Number 1 is to be curious. Right? And when I say be curious, I mean that both in wanting to be open and learn as much as you can, right? Because you're in that absorption phase. But also, when we find ourselves, like, one thing that people talk about all the time with new hires is that they can't stand somebody who comes in and immediately says, oh, you could do this differently. Right? So rather than jumping ahead to solve the problem, or what we perceive as a problem, get curious. That's an interesting way of doing it. Help me understand. I've done it differently in the past. Can you help me get my hands wrapped around this so that I can be more effective the way you do it? Right? Being curious does an interesting thing. 1, it will demonstrate your credibility. We are perceived as more credible when we're open than when we're closed-minded. 2, it keeps us focused not on ourselves. It is impossible to be focused on being curious and be focused on ourselves at the same time. And 3, it demonstrates openness and vulnerability. which is a hallmark of creating intimacy, that connection and that sense of safety. So be curious. The second one is to listen and empathize. Right? And this is really important because when we're curious, sometimes it's easy to just take that information and file it away for ourselves. Right? We're just kind of getting everything that we can, and we're scooping it in, and we're kind of building our own little nest of information. Listening is more than gathering data. Listening is also, at least effective listening, is also validating to the other person that you've heard them, so that you both understand that you understand what you've just heard. I know that's a lot of that came out a little bit strangely, but really being willing to focus in on what they're saying, make an effort to understand it, and not just the rational elements of what they're saying, but empathize, get into what's behind what they're telling you. Right? And again, be curious as you're doing that. The third trust building way to avoid these mistakes is withhold negative observations. Now, this is the most tactical thing that I have in this whole session. And that is to say, when you see something and your instinct is to say, I know a better way of doing it. And in these kind of build, first, get curious. I would recommend that for at least the first 30 days, if you see something that you think can be changed, rather than sharing that you think it can be changed, jot it down in a notebook. Keep a list of observations that you make where you think you might be able to improve something, or you have an idea, or you think that something isn't as good as it could be. And keep that list to yourself, unless you are specifically asked to give feedback. Because as you continue to absorb and learn about the organization, as you are more curious and you listen, you may find your perspective shifting. It may be different from how you would have done it coming in, but it may be exactly right for what the organization needs. So withhold negative observations. 4, be transparent and honest. And this sounds like it's contradictory to the one before, but it's really not. Be open and honest about when you need help, about what your expectations are, and about, most of all, anything that you're experiencing. Because again, they need to know how they can help you. Number 5, look for ways to get involved. Do not put yourself on an island. Actively seek out, whether that is joining a committee, joining an employee resources group. It might be something as simple as helping to organize a team happy hour. But be the one who is actively pursuing your own involvement. And this goes hand in hand with number 6, which is make the first move. Chances are we always think that everybody's thinking about us because we're the star of our own movie. Most of the time, people aren't thinking about us at all. And that kind of goes back to what the conversation Blake was having about how can you ease the entry of people, right? And so if you're a new employee, don't be shy from going up and introducing yourself to people. Don't be intrusive, but also don't wait for somebody to orchestrate that because they may not be thinking about it. And then the final trust building way to avoid these mistakes is to accept the fact that you will make mistakes. Accept it gracefully, be open about it. Don't beat yourself up, right? Everyone makes mistakes. They didn't hire you because you're perfect. They hired you because you have a lot to offer them. So these are the 7 trust building ways to avoid common new hire mistakes. Now, as we wrap up, I have one more number to show you and 3 tips, and it is this: 30 days to make your mark. You have 30 days. Give yourself the breathing room. And while you're doing it, remember to take a breath. You don't have to come out of the gate. You don't have to be hitting your numbers on day 1 or day 2. They're going to give you time to settle in. You should take the time to settle in. Secondly, keep your perspective. Right? Don't immediately react to something. Keep that idea, just like with writing an email. If you're not sure about it, pop it into your drafts folder and let it sit for a day. Go home and talk to somebody who has an objective point of view about what you're experiencing. It's easy for us to not even recognize that our self-orientation has kind of heightened because we're very alert. And so we may not be seeing things as they truly are. And then third is to be intentional. Choose to do the things that will build your brand, build the relationships with your new colleagues. I take this quote from, I think it was in the movie Sniper, right? Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So when I say you've got 30 days to make your mark, it's not you only have 30 days to make your mark. It's you've got 30 days to make your mark. So that's the end of it. I'm curious, I know that we're at time. What's your biggest takeaway? And if you would, you can come off mute or chat it, and then I'll stay on for questions. A couple of you said that you had to be gone at quarter
Yeah.
up.
I do. So I don't even think I have time to give you a takeaway. Sorry.
That's fine. Jennifer, feel free to reach out to us if you want follow-up, and you'll get the slides and the recording in the mail.
Perfect. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Blake, Daniel, Lindsay, what are your thoughts?
I think we kind of all forget in a new hire situation that we're all still just human beings. You know, Blake was saying that, you know, it would be nice to have someone help you integrate into the company, kind of show you around. But I think that it's okay just to say, like, hey, you know, new girl's here, you know, what should I know? What shouldn't I do? You know,
Yeah.
whose coffee pot is this? You know, that sort of thing, just to kind of give you a casual entrance. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all business, of course, but it's hard enough starting a new job not to, you know, to crawl into a corner and just stay there. So I think, and everyone else working there too is also a little intimidated by new people coming in. I think we forget that too. We feel, like you said, Noel, we're always the star of our own show, but I know, like back in my big agency days, when a new person would come in, everybody wanted to know, like, what was their angle? You know, what are they doing? There was a bit of intimidation about how this person was going to outshine you, or, you know, or not worse, not get it right, you know, not be trustworthy. So I think as long as we can consider that, you know, we're all in this together, I think that goes by the wayside pretty quickly when you start something new. We really are all in this together. So it's hard to lose sight of. It's hard to keep that focus when you're, you know, in a competitive business landscape, but it is true. It's always going to be true.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know what my biggest takeaway was. It was just a good summary of what it's like to be a new hire. I haven't been that in a long time, to be
In a
honest.
while.
So it was just a good understanding of what someone else could be going through, or what I could be going through in, you know, in months' time. So it's a good way to try and self-reflect and understand. You know, I know here on our project we've had, I don't know, 10 new hires, and they're thrown into the deep end very, very quickly without much orientation, and I feel for them. And yeah, I think it's a good reminder for me, just even right now, to go out and make sure that I'm introducing myself to them and making sure that they're feeling somewhat oriented, because it's hard for them. Even though they're not under my supervision, I can see struggles happen, right? And they're just not given that opportunity to. The time is what is challenging, I feel like, in a lot of industries, is are they actually given the time to actually give them the breathing room to understand what the company needs and wants from you, and making sure that you're doing a good job and you're doing your job the right way, right? Because sometimes it's not just a clear path of, yes, you need to check these boxes and then you're good. It can be challenging. So just helping folks along the way, I'm sure. And Lindsay, like you said, I think, you know, being understanding we are just humans, right? We're all here just trying to do
Yeah.
our best we can.
Blake, one thing that with what you were saying that kind of came to mind is I think I'm trying to think of how this was manifested in former roles. Giving new people permission, and more than giving them permission, setting the expectation for them that it's okay for them to share what they're worried about or what they don't know without it impacting their performance appraisal, if you will. And I think that the clearest way, it was actually at the company where I was when I almost got fired from my internship. I did not get fired. I did get hired full-time after my MBA program, by the way. They had a mentoring system that they set up a 2-tier mentoring system where they had a more senior mentor who was kind of the person that you would go to for what I would call traditional mentoring. How do I think about my career path? And then they also had a peer mentor. And the peer mentor was somebody that did not speak with that person's manager. So that was the person that they could go to say, hey, I'm feeling a little lost here, or how do I navigate this? Those things that we don't want to share with somebody who's in a more senior position because we're afraid that it'll reflect poorly on us. And I think that might be one of in my career, that's probably the most effective thing that a company ever did, was give me that resource of somebody who had no influence over my performance that I could go to when I had questions and not feel like I was putting myself in danger.
Yeah, I know my company does that. It's not, I forget what they call it. It's like a peer buddy or something that they give to you for the first few months of hiring. And I didn't have that orientation 10 years ago, but they have put that in place since probably in the last 5 years. But I've been on the peer side and helping folks orient themselves, and you can tell it even just by one conversation with them that they start to feel a little bit more comfortable just asking some of the basic questions that they're afraid to ask their manager, and because they maybe were supposed to know that upon hire, but they just they forgot how to do something or where to do it, right? It's little things that they're afraid to, and they get stuck, and then all of a sudden time has passed and they should have done it. And I can put myself in their shoes. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Like the longer it goes, the worse our self-orientation gets and the more worried we become about it. And suddenly we've lost all perspective on it. And it's like, it's the end of the world. And now, well, I may as well, I get to the point where I'm like, well, I may as well just quit. Like totally out of control. All right. We are way past the time. Any questions before we wrap it up?
Not on my side.
Yep.
Right. I'm not even going to put up the thumbs up, thumbs down. Well, go ahead. You can pop that poll up. Why not? I thoroughly expect you, Blake, to participate in our Was This Webinar Helpful poll.
Will you know if I do it or not?
Sarah, do you have that poll? There we go. I can even see it real time. And poor Dan keeps popping in and out. Yes, 100%. It's gonna be my best score ever. All right, we will send out the resources for you. I appreciate your time. It was great getting to meet you, Blake. Reach out if you have any questions. And Daniel, I'm going to reach out to you all soon. It's been way, way too long. So look for a note from Trusted Advisor coming your way. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you for putting this on.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks.